Hi viewers, in this video I will show you how to create HR dashboard. I have employee data in this table. This is basically a dummy data that I had created in my previous video, which is basically the part 1 of this 3 video series. So based on this data I will be creating HR dashboard. The dashboard includes the important HR metrics and other HR reports, including the number of employees in different departments and falling in different age groups with different experience brackets, right? And at the end of this video I'll be using the slicers. Slicer is a very important tool and it can be used to filter the information quite simultaneously on just one click. So let's create the HR dashboard. First of all, I will determine the important HR metrics, and my first metric is employee headcount. I will create this HR dashboard with the help of different pivot tables and pivot charts. So let's go to the data sheet, and my first metric is the employee headcount, the number of employees working in the company. So click insert, go to pivot table, and here I have two options, a new worksheet and existing worksheet. For now I'll be using the new worksheet and click OK. So this will create a new worksheet automatically and it will take me to this new worksheet, right? Here, so this is the layout of the pivot table and it has basically the two parts. First is the pivot table and the second one is the pivot table fields, or you can simply call it a field list. So this has the two portions. The upper portion contains the fields and the lower portion is the value areas. I will be dragging the fields into either of these four areas and the information will be displayed in this pivot table. Viewers, if you are not familiar about pivot tables, you can watch my other video that I have created, and in that video I have explained in detail how we can create pivot tables, right? So but for now I am interested to calculate the number of employees in the company. For this I will use this employee ID, this field. I click and drag this field to the and drop to the value areas, right? So it provides me the sum of employees ID, but I am interested in employee headcount. So click down arrow and go to value field settings, go to count. Here you have the different options, so you can summarize your values by these options: sum, count, average, minimum, maximum, whatever you require, but I need count. So click here and click OK. So this is how we count the number of employees. And now my second measure is the average of age of employees. For this I will drag this age to the value areas. So it is providing me the sum of age, but I am interested in count. So again go to the value field settings and I am interested in the average of age, so I will click on average, click OK. And now my third measurement is the average of length of experience, right? For this I will use this field, length of experience in years. I drag to the value areas and again I would go to the value field settings and click on average. So here I do find the average of this. We can format this number in two ways. Either you go to value field settings, you click on number format and click number. I don't require decimal, so reduce it to 0, click OK. OK. Or you can simply go under the home tab and click here the number, and you don't require the decimals, and click here. That's OK, fine. So I drag the values to the row areas and it will provide me a better look. Okay, and we can rename it as key HR matrix. Okay, and now I create my first HR report, and that is the number of employees working in different departments. All right, and now let's go to the data and click insert pivot table, and I'll be using existing worksheet, right? The existing worksheet is sheet 4 that I have just created, and click OK. Now sorry, this one, and click here, and now click OK. Right. So here I want to calculate the number of employees working in different departments, and I will use this field department and drag to the row areas. Okay. So to find the number of employees, again I will be using this employee ID, and I drag to the value areas. Again I go to the value field settings, click count, and click OK. So this is how I can find the number of employees in the different departments. Right. I can rename it the department, and this is the employee head count. Right. So before I move further, let me rename this sheet as new HR dashboard. Okay. Now we want to create pivot chart. For this, click inside the table and click insert, go to pivot chart, and here are different options. You can use a column, bar, whatever you like, but for now I use this column options. Right, click OK, and this is how we can create the pivot chart. And I don't require this legend, I remove here, and I also don't require these field buttons. I hide these buttons, and I rename this as workforce distribution in departments. Right. So you can also show the values on these bars, and click on the data labels for this data labels, and you can see the values over here. You can show the values as well. And now I want to calculate the number of employees in falling in different age groups. Right. So let's go to the data sheet and click insert, click pivot tables, and for now I will be using existing worksheet. Right, existing worksheet is this new HR dashboard, and click OK, click here, and then click OK. Right. So in order to calculate the age groups, I will use this age field and will drop here into the row areas, and then I will use the employee ID to calculate the number of employees. And again I will go for this value field settings and click on count and click OK. So this will provide me the number of employees. Okay, so this is the age of employees. So the minimum age of employees is 26, and the maximum is 60. So I will be creating the groups between 26 and 60. So click inside this table anywhere, and right click, go to group 25 and 60, and you can take interval 5 or 10, whatever you like. I take 5 and click OK. So this is how you can create the age groups, right? And you can rename it as age groups, and this is employee head count. And now I will create the pivot chart, and you click insert, click pivot chart, and this time I'll be using this bar chart, and click OK. Remove this legend and also hide these field buttons, and if you want this values, the data labels, and you can click here. Alright, so this is how you can create the pivot chart for the different age groups. We can also rename this one workforce age group. Okay, workforce age distribution. And now we are interested to find the number of employees falling in different experience brackets. For this, let's go to the data sheet and click insert and create pivot table. And again I will go to the existing worksheet, and this is the HR dashboard. Click here, click OK. Right. So in order to determine the experience brackets, I will be using this field length of experience in years, and I will drag this to the row areas. And in order to determine the number of employees, again I will be using the employee ID as usual and will drop to the value areas. And again I will have to go to value field settings, count, and then click OK. So it will provide me the number of employees. As we have created groups earlier for age, and now I will create the groups for the this field, that is length of experience. So first let's see what's the upper and the lower limit. That is 1 and 40. Okay, so the experience is between 1 to 40. So let's create the groups for this, and right click on this table and click group and 0 to 40 with interval of 5. Okay, this is the table that provides me the number of employees falling in different experience brackets. So we can rename this as experience in years. So employee head count, okay, and now let's create a pivot chart for this information as well, and go to click insert, go to pivot chart, and this one again I use the bar chart, and click OK and remove this one, hide this one, and then we can rename as okay. Again, if you want to show this one, again go to the data levels and fine. So this is how you can create the pivot chart for this, right? And now I create a very simple report about employees, and I want to know that how many female and male employees working in the company. For this, go to the data sheet and click insert pivot table, existing worksheet, and click new HR dashboard, right? And click here, click OK. All right. So I will use this field gender and drag and drop to the row areas, and I'll be using employee ID as usual, and click field and click on count. Okay, fine. This is gender and employee head count. This provides me the number of employees, male and female employees working in the company. We can generate a pivot chart for this as well, and let's go to the pivot chart, and I create a pie chart. I use the Stoner for this. Click OK. We can change the chart type as well, and for this let me click on this one. Okay, fine, that's great. And let's see here the category name. Let me click over here, and I'll move this one, and let me rename this as gender distribution, right? And I also click to hide this one. So this is the report about gender. So viewers, this is how we have created the HR matrix and the different HR reports. Let me rearrange these pivot tables and the pivot charts for effective representation of HR dashboard. This is how the HR dashboard looks like. And now I will use slicers to filter this information. Click inside the pivot table and go to pivot table analyze. Click insert slicer. Here you see the different fields based on which you can filter the data. So for now I'm interested in a region, and I click on region and click OK. This is the slicer, and I drag this one, and you can change the number of columns, and also can change the height and width, and also you can change the slicer styles based on here. You can choose anyone. This is how you create the slicers, right? And I click on any of the regions to filter the information. If you see from your region, and nothing happens, and it is just because it is not linked with these tables. So in order to create the link with these tables, I will have to create connections between the slicer and all these tables. But before I create connections, I will have to give names to these pivot tables. And for instance, click on this pivot table and go to the pivot table options, and I rename this one as HR matrix. Right, and click OK, and I will have to give specific names to every table, and you name it as a department. This is experience, and gender, and this is age. I have given the names to all these tables, and now right click on this slicer to create connections and click on report connections. So I connect the slicer with the tables, and this is the age, department, experience, gender, and click OK. So now if I click on the regions, it will reflect changes in all these tables and charts. Right. And now viewers, I am interested to find the number of employees retiring in the next 5 years. So I will use the slicer for this, and so once again click anywhere inside any of these pivot tables and go to pivot table, pivot table analyze, and go to insert slicer. Here I want to see the remaining years of service. I am interested in this field, right? So click OK. So this is the filter that I will be using to know the information about the employees who are retiring. But this is something that I don't find the information meaningful, and for this I will have to create the groups of employees. So for this I will first of all create a pivot table. So let's go to data and click on insert pivot table, click existing worksheet, click OK, click here and then click OK. Right here I will drag this field, the remaining years of service, to the row areas, and then I will use this employee ID to the number of employees. So again go to the value field settings to find the count, and this is how you find the number of employees. Viewers, I will create groups for those employees who are about to retire, right? And so this is the minimum 0, and the maximum value is you can see is 34. So I'll be creating the groups based on the values 0 and 34. So 0 means that the employee has less than a year of service. Let's click on this and right click in this column and go to the group, and 0 and 35 and within 5. This is how we create the groups. So this is actually the number of employees, 115 employees who are about to retire in the next 5 years, right? So based on this table I'll be creating the slicer. Go to the pivot table, analyze, and go to insert slicer, remaining years of service. Okay, fine. And now it will give me the groups in the slicer. If you go to the slicer, you can change the number of columns from here. Okay, for now I reduce it to 2, and here here's you see the groups with the light colors, and these are basically the indication that these two groups don't have any data. We can get rid of these two light color groups, and for this right click and go to slicer settings and click on hide item with no data. Click OK. So by using this slicer I can filter the data. Suppose click on it. Oh, again I will have to, sorry, it will not filter because it is not linked with these tables. So first I will have to create the connection between the slicer and all these tables. So for this right click on the slicer and go to report connections and click on age, experience, gender, department, and it's okay, fine. And now this slicer is connected with all these tables, right? And if I click over here, 0 to 5, so this provides me the information about employees who are retiring in the next 5 years. So there are 115 employees basically. Okay, it's not linked with the HR matrix. In fact, it's not linked, I think so. Yes, HR matrix, it's not linked. And now I click OK. And now if I click over here, and now you can see this is the number of employees who are actually retiring in the next 5 years. These are 115 employees, and among those employees you can see the employees from accounts and production. There are 28 employees each from these two departments, and 32 from admin, 27 from sales and marketing. And so this could be an indication for HR department to go for their promotion planning, HR planning, or succession planning, whatever the case may be. You can view the single region, and you can also click here. Now you can see the number of employees retiring in this particular region in the next 5 years, right? So Slicer is a very important and useful tool to filter the information, and this tool actually reflects the changes in all the tables simultaneously. And now let me rearrange this data. So viewers, this is how you can create your HR dashboard. Thank you for watching the video.